Hello everyone! This is a video that fate is conspiring against me to make because this is the second time I'm trying to make it. Different softwares are deciding that my audio is coming from my webcam and I've been this close to emulating my webcam, but I think now the sound is finally correct and I will record this video for the third time. So I hope you enjoy it. Today we are going into lighting. So today I am inviting you on a little journey to ensure that this lovely lady over here is not standing in the blazing sunlight anymore. So I'll take you through different ways to change the lighting in the game. We'll start with the simplest way to do it that I've covered briefly in another video, and that is to go into the triggers over here, open up the panel and find the atmosphere and lighting trigger. When you select one of those, you go into the sidebar and you can change the atmosphere. So I think for this one we can go for a quite cozy atmosphere, dusk, gale heaven. And then you see when you've set that atmosphere, it gets really, really bright, and that is because we haven't really changed the lighting. So let's find the same one. At least a similar one that might fit. Maybe this one. Aha. Or maybe we want to find dusk gale heaven. So I selected the wrong one. Dusk gale heaven. Yeah. So now you can see that, well, I guess we are in a very different world with very different lighting. Connected to these two, there are more sophisticated things you can do. So let's move will, or let's move our selection a little bit. The point is I want to sort of see the sky when I'm showing you these things, and I want to see the shadows as well. So maybe like this. Because connected to these, there are several settings you can change. And then you want to go into the work atmosphere panel. So I have played around with this because I am, redoing a video I already made. But what you can see here is that you have different buttons. So the first one is the camera mode. So this is what we're seeing in game. Then you have an editor mode, and you have an override mode. In the override mode, you can decide if you want to override the atmosphere you have set, which is currently off. It's using the level data resource. Or you can have it set to a trigger. So we have set two triggers. So that would be the atmosphere trigger and the lighting trigger. So if we activate these, we can see them. So let's not override it and just go from the camera mode, and I will show you some things you can do in here to change more things about the lighting and atmosphere. It's quite easy to mess things up in here. I have not used it extensively for my project, but it is quite educational to go into these menus and see what we can actually do. So as you can see, two new windows now showed up. It's one for the lighting and one for the atmosphere. So let's first look at the lighting one. You can actually change a lot of things about your lighting. So for example, you can change the position of the sun, which will also change the shadows. You can change the pitch. You can change the temperature. That didn't really do much, but or did it? Yeah, wow, that's really cool, right? Pitch 0. I think it was around 7, so yeah, something like that. You can add a moon if you like. So let's just cancel and not save these settings. Yeah, so it's back to the way it was, right? You can add a moon. You can say that the moon should cast light. And you can change the hue of the moon, so you can maybe see it up there. It's sort of slightly out of our field of view here. You can change the pitch of the moon as well, of course. Its distance. So you see a very big moon is showing up here now. The radius of the moon, I guess we have made a really, really big moon now, so that's pretty cool. And you can, of course, change the temperature, intensity, and lots of stuff like that. And a lot more complicated settings that I will not get into. You can change the color of the sky. So let's revert again before we go back into that. Yeah, so somehow it has now saved a really, really big moon for us. And to be honest, I don't know exactly. Yeah, so now it reverted again, right? So it's quite easy to get confused in here, and then you mess stuff up for your level. So be careful, learn what you're doing before you decide to put it into your project. But yeah, you can add stars, you can add atmospheric scattering. Interestingly, your options here are 3 types of Earth and then Mars. So, now it's life on Mars. Scattering intensity. So you can change quite a lot, actually. You can change the sun color. This looks a lot like Mars. You can change the volumetric clouds. Shadows. Do you want a lot of shadows? Base color, top color. Cloud coverage. So you see the clouds are now changing. And of course you can set a lot of different things on this. You can set the wind speed, so how quickly are the clouds moving. And you can have some rain coverage. And you can set these coverages here, so you have different options. Let's revert it again. We are back to basics, and I wanted to show you the shadows. You can work on these shadows, so you see Will's shadow over here is changing now. You can change the cascade count. You can visualize cascades, change their distribution, set the light distance. So now 1 light distance, and then the light is far away. The size of the light will of course affect the shadows, and you can set some sort of bias. I don't know what that means. You can set the obscurity. Didn't change much here. There is some local coverage stuff. I don't know exactly what that is. And then other settings here as well, like the light influence and bias for the SSAO, which I don't know what is. And then we have more tabs. We can go into fog. We can decide how we want that to look like. This was pretty cool. Set the distance. And then you can add different fog layers, right? So layer 0 and layer 1 is set here. And you can also do stuff to override timelines. So this is something I have not gone into at all, but at least I just thought I'd show you to inform you about it. So these are the different things you can set for the lighting. And you can then save it at different presets. So you see I have played around with it a little, and then you can select from here and load whatever you want to work with. There is also another window which changes the atmosphere. So let's just exit these things again and revert. I do not want to save it. We open it up again. And then let's look at the possible settings for the atmosphere. So you can do some stuff to affect the camera planes, the wind, and how that will affect clothing. You can set different environmental effects. like dandelion seeds, and yeah, also something I don't have a lot of experience with. Local light source. You can also set the automatic timeline lighting. So you have different options here. Not a whole lot of them, but yeah. And then also quite important to be aware of is, I'm just going to zoom in on the characters a little bit because I want you to see what happens. Yeah. If I can bring your attention to this character light setup, that can be quite effective. So you don't have a lot of different options, but you have some. So this would be the default. This would be like in a test level, and that's completely messed up. But for example, at sunset, or in Char's dungeon, so you see this sort of moody moonlight effect on them. This is what the characters will look like in the world, so what sort of lighting is on them. In the city, it's quite bright, right? So yes, you have a ton of different options in the work atmosphere panel, and I think you can use it to your heart's delight. But it's also possible to sort of edit yourself into a corner where you can't, at least I couldn't quite understand how to fix the lighting I had played around with in one of my projects. But it's clearly very powerful. You can go into, I mean, it's so powerful I forget about these different options, right? There are post-processing options for exposure, bloom, how to add a vignette, that would be like the corners of the screen would be changing, light shafts, and depth of field. So I don't know if this will be, since it's post-processing, I don't know if it works just like live here. In the beta color thing, you can actually set the contrast. You can work with the shadows, more shadows, less shadows. You want extra highlights or less highlights. You can change the temperature of the atmosphere. You can change the tint, the hue, and finally, if you want Baldur's Gate 3 to be in black and white, you can just use this one. So set the saturation to 0. So all of this is pretty cool, and perhaps the most powerful way to edit lighting. And I will show you a couple of other things as well. Another way to just set the lighting for your project is to go into Edit Level Data, and here you can also set lighting. You can set it to Astral Plane, for example, would be the default lighting, and atmosphere. So I haven't actually used this, but that is certainly an option in level data. And you could see when we were editing in the atmosphere panel, there were some settings to choose whether to use the default level data or not. The other lighting options I will show you is based on stuff you put into the level, and then also the timeline. So let's go with putting stuff into the level first. Say that we want to add a light. You have some light options here. So you can look at all the different light options, and you have plenty. So let's move our characters a little bit for this, because I want you to see what happens when the background is dark and we put in some of these effects. So you see we have a lot of shadows, and let's try to put in, for example, maybe fire. So we want something to be on fire, maybe. So let's search for fire. Not ire, fire. A fire effect. That was a gameplay light. And then maybe light exterior fire. So now everything is on fire. And let's try to talk to the lady. So you see that these effects carry on into the timeline, and you also see something else, and that's from when I recorded the last video. I added some VFX to the timeline. So let's go into that then. So how can you use the timeline to change lighting? So let's remove the fire. And we will open the timeline for our conversation with Mintara to see how we can use the timeline editor to change lighting. Let's open the timeline. We are removing it. All right. So here is our queen, Mintara. She is standing with Will, and not so much is going on. We are in the timeline editor, and one of the things I wanted to bring your attention to is that the timeline editor actually also has a way to change the lighting only in the timeline. So we can go into exposure settings, or we can edit the default lighting. In exposure settings, you can set different deltas. For example, if I set it to 100, things become quite bright. So you can set these exposure settings, and you can edit the default lighting as well. So you can set the color intensity and scattering intensities. This is definitely something you can play around with. I've already set this actually from earlier, so let's just place it back to the original values. So this is definitely an option, and this can work to sort of change the timeline if you think that things are a little bit too dark or a little bit too bright. Definitely play around with that. But an even more effective way to have some lighting effects in cinematics would be the VFX, actually. So let's put something in here. I have already actually changed the field of view to be quite far away from Mintara because I wanted to show you what happens when we put VFX into the editor. It's quite interesting. So you see here in the timeline editor that you can add different things. You can add new actors, and you can add templates. That could also be an NPC. That's not actually an actor. It just looks like there's a, NPC in there. And you can add effect resources. So maybe we want to add a template. Could we perhaps find a wizard? Like a person? So these are just base root templates. So we could maybe add EA Mintara to have next to our modern Mintara. So when we are adding a template, it's not showing up yet, right? So you're going to have to show the actor. Show actor, we have to activate that, right? So where did that Mintara show up, I wonder? Is there another Mintara in here? Yeah, she is standing right here. So we can't see her that well. Let's move her a little bit. So I added a transform, and then if we go to translate, we can change the position of our new Mintara, and I will just add the shading here in the preview to base color so it's easy to see. So you see EA Mintara is standing here, or at least Mintara with the EA outfit. And so let's just move her a little bit in the other direction. Well, where is she? I always mess up like what to change here. Yeah, okay, so now she is far behind Mintara. She is now on top of Mintara, so let's put her to the side a little bit. Maybe there. And we can turn this lady around, so we can add a rotate. Yeah, so this Mintara is just a template. She's a timeline template, and she's not an actor in the conversation. But you can still add animations to her and make her do stuff. All right, but what we were here for was a VFX, right? So let's go into this one, this little box of crayon, add effect resource, and let's have some. This verifier, you can see it appear here. So these are the little different parts of verifier. So let's add this one. We have now added verifier, and what we have to do is to add the effect, to play it, enable it, like so, and we have to show the actor. Now, what should happen is that we see the verifier, and I think we actually see it here under the floor. A little hard for you guys to see, maybe. It might be that it's not represented well here. Let's try to go to the default shading, and yeah, you can see now that the verifier is down there. Let's try to move it a little bit. Aha, so we have applied the transform and we could now scale it. Let's make it quite large. And let's see if we can move it to under our two ladies. When I did this video earlier, I couldn't seem to get it to move upwards. Maybe it's like the thing we're seeing is supposed to be on the floor. But we can move it in different directions. So let's move it here and a bit backwards. That would be the opposite direction. Speak to this lady now. You can see that EA Mintara is not standing next to her. This is because EA Mintara is just a timeline template. She doesn't exist in the real world. And if we now start the conversation, you see that we have two Mintaras. That's a lovely situation to be in. You can see that the fairy fire is active down there, and we also saw some butterflies. And when we go to the next part of the conversation, you can see that the other Mintara is still here, but you don't see the VFX because we hadn't actually, we don't show the actor for the next nodes in the timeline. So here we are. Let's try to add one more thing and see if the timeline is willing to handle it. Let's add, oh, I don't know, maybe we can add some blood rain. And I think our only option is light blood rain or rainwater storm. So maybe we try the rainwater storm instead and see what happens. I've never tried that before, so I guess we have to play it. And I guess we have to show the actor. So I should maybe have expanded this a little earlier, but so the storm is being added. Can you see it? Oh, shit. Let's just put this in again. Let's go to the start of the node, let's add it, and let's enable it, and let's also show the actor in case we need that. So now, the storm is roaring. Let's see what happens when we talk to the ladies. Aha. So as you can see, it's not as dramatic as in the preview, but there is a storm raging, and the rain is falling, and you can see some fairy fire under them. So this is then, so I think this then concludes. My little intro to different ways to change lighting. And also, by accident, we covered how to put in templates and VFX into a timeline. If you want this VFX to continue, you can just go to the next nodes and you will just enable it, right? So you need to play the effect. So I'm just adding it for all of them, for all the nodes. So let's try to talk again. So now it's raining, you can see the fairy fire, and we really think that she is so much prettier than Deliria, or I want to dominate the Underdark with you. So you see, storm is still going, the effect is still there, and then EA Mintara has disappeared because she is a template and we didn't activate her for the other nodes, or the other lines in the timeline. So I think this concludes my little intro to changing the lighting, and I hope this was useful, and let's hope my sound worked this time.